So now we get to the tutorial where we start to talk about moral philosophy. Don't switch off. Don't switch off. This is relevant. You need this, and it is going to make you feel better. It's going to make your life more functional. It's going to be easier for you to discern between your thoughts and your feelings, and between one feeling and another feeling rapidly. I'm going to show you why it works first, and then I'm going to show you what to do. So I'm going to reverse the flow. I would usually just show you what to do and then explain why it works afterwards. So we're going to put moral philosophy here, and you'll be thinking, I don't want to study morals. I don't want to study philosophy. It sounds like some sort of university, a particularly tedious university course. I guarantee you it is not. So we could change this up for values, a values philosophy, values or principles, sort of a way of life, we could say, instead of philosophy. But there are certain questions that you do need to be able to answer. And I took these off because they're a bit dirty. There are certain questions you do need to be able to answer. And the main one, the big one, is what is good and what is evil. Okay, so that's what we need to do. Now let me tell you why we need to do that. When a person has suffered intense long-term trauma for a period of time, usually in childhood, but sometimes in adulthood, it can play out this way as well. As long as you feel, as long as the person feels like they can't escape and like they were infantilized by the process, it will have this effect. The person starts to feel like they have no agency over who they are and what they do, and they start to feel like the sole purpose in their life is to serve others. And because they're not allowed to say no, and they're not allowed to make judgments that are negative about their abusers in the abusive relationships, that's another element of it, which is why it's typically in childhood, but sometimes in very abusive domestic relationships between adults, this plays out as well. It did for me. You're not allowed to criticize the other person. So you lose your moral system. The thing that cleans the board will clean my glasses. How is this relevant in terms of healing CPTSD and a host of mental health issues? That's better. The thing that makes the thing that causes this to work is that inside of you, when you've experienced trauma over time, not singular trauma, it's not singular, it's over time, again and again, over time, again and again, is you start to externalize your locus of control, which means that you come to a belief system where you're like, life is what happens to me. I have no say. And that's probably because you were told. Or it was either told to you explicitly or implicitly, you don't have a say. You don't get to determine what you do with your life. And if you said, oh, I have a want, I have a need, I have a desire, in an abusive relationship with a parent or with a partner, you'd be punished for that. So you lose it. You just give it up. You say, I'm not going to do that. Now, you already know about flashbacks. You've got to this part in the tutorial cycle. You're probably pretty far along already in terms of reducing your flashbacks and in decreasing their frequency. So good, well done. Well done for keeping up with me this long. What won't be in place yet is a good ability to tell the difference between different emotions. You probably still won't have much emotional literacy. And sometimes you'll confuse a feeling for a thought. So because you feel sad or you feel abandoned, you look for a source of sadness, even if it's not really there, or you look for a source of abandonment, even if it's not really there. You feel slighted, you feel attacked, you feel betrayed, you look for a source of those things, even if they're not really there. So today, I'm going to show you a methodology that helps to deal with that. you are probably already aware that you don't have strong boundaries. So let's get into why we do this and why trauma over time makes this necessary. Trauma over time damages boundaries. So it puts cracks into a person's boundaries. It just chips away again and again and again over hours, over days. A person's boundaries are slowly worn down. The boundaries, there are two boundaries that you should be concerning yourself with. One is your boundary with the outside world, and the other one is the boundary you have between you and you. These are the two things that need healing. The boundary between you and the outside world would be broken by an abusive mother or an abusive father that says, this is what I want you to do even if you don't want to do it. And I want you to pretend that you want to do it. Did you hear that? The broken boundary from a parental or an authority figure or a cleric or a prison guard is, I'm going to make you do something you don't want to do, and I'm going to make you pretend that you want to do it. So me making you do something you don't want to do breaks your boundaries between you and the external world, including you and external people. Forcing you to pretend that you want to do it breaks your boundaries between you and you. So you're going against what you want as far as external pressure goes, and you're going against what you want as far as internal pressure goes. This has a double boundary break effect. Over time, you lose a sense, as I say, of you lose an ability to say no. You lose an ability to say, that's what he wants, but it's not what I want, so I'm not going to do it. You lose an ability to distinguish between, well, I feel betrayed, but that doesn't necessarily mean I am betrayed. Or you'll hear somebody say something to you, and you'll take one or two words from the sentence. Maybe they say, I think that you're quite a sad and lonely person, but I love you and I really want you to feel better, and I want to connect with you, and I want to nurture you and move forward in the relationship. And all you hear is, you're sad and lonely, and then you feel judged. When this happens, as I'm sure many of you are already literate enough in psychology to know, in the clinical setting, they would start talking about borderline personality disorder. They would, and this is where they'll say, why is there this big correlation between PTSD and BPD? Why do so many people who show up with proper PTSD symptoms, when they check them, they find a good number, a significant number, actually tick enough boxes to get a clinical diagnosis to at least be on the BPD spectrum? And this is why. It's all about broken boundaries. It's all about a response to trauma that takes place over time. Probably not saying anything you don't know just yet. We've already discussed the inner outer critic. The inner and outer critic. We know that this is in Freudian psychoanalytic language is the superego. And we know that we have to deal with both our emotional flashbacks and negative superego injunctions, or in other more normal person's language, nasty speak from the inner critic, nasty speak judging others from the outer critic. We have to overcome them in order to be really free of the bind of CPTSD. So why do we do, what's the bloody hell has this got all to do with moral philosophy? Okay, so I've given you two goals. So here's goal one, and it's to heal external boundaries between you and others, between you and the world. Just because you want something doesn't mean I want it. Just because you feel I have to do a thing doesn't mean I have to do a thing. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And between you and you, between my thoughts and my feelings, and between one feeling and another, between my internal boundaries, between what I wanted yesterday and what I wanted today. That's also a boundary. So you have to learn to be able to say no to the external world sometimes, which is what a boundary is. It's a no. Sometimes you have to say no to people. You might say it externally. You might just say it in your head. I don't want to do what you want me to do, and so I'm not going to do it. And sometimes you have to say no to yourself. We can't run with every paranoid or anxiety-rooted thought chain or trauma-rooted thought chain that shows up. Because if we do, we start flashbacking, we kick off a flashback cycle, We will essentially awaken our own inner and outer critic, and then that will induce more flashbacks. And what I suspect happens for a lot of people with CPTSD, and maybe this would resonate with you if you feel like you're on the spectrum for this, is excuse me, my nose is itchy. We actually get addicted to it. We actually get addicted to it, not in the sense of we're getting a payoff and it feels good. Perhaps the word conditioned is better. But because these are coping mechanisms and this is how we're used to dealing with the world, I do think people get addicted to drama cycles. They can get addicted to self-pity. They can get addicted to feeling victimized, to feeling betrayed, to feeling double-crossed. They can get addicted to feeling rejected. And they'll induce a rejection in the environment because they're conditioned or addicted to going through this cycle again. And this also is partly down to a belief system. So this is the other thing that developing a good moral philosophy allows us to do, is it allows us to challenge beliefs. So if you believe you're worthless and unlovable, and somebody comes along and tries to love you, or you believe you're not worthy of friends and nobody really would like you if they got to know you, and somebody tries to be your friend, you're pissing the punch. I said I wouldn't swear on this channel. Oh, well, I might just do that now. You'll ruin the punch. You'll ruin the punch because you don't believe it's possible. And what I've discovered is human beings are funny little creatures. We would rather confirm our beliefs about reality than have a good time. We would rather confirm our negative beliefs of how the world works than actually be free of them. We choose the positive confirmation of nasty beliefs about ourselves and others over the possibility of transcending those beliefs and enjoying the concurrent freedom and joy and happiness and peace that would come with that. Funny little creatures. So we must come back to beliefs. Goal 1 has 2 parts. Goal 2, we already know that we are to, what's it being called? It's being called, I released a course on it and other people call it silence the inner critic, heal the superego, and all the rest of it. Now, today, for the first time ever, I'm going to give you a next level goal to this. We've spoken of the inner critic as a bad thing. It is. We've spoken of the toxified, damaged superego as a bad thing. It is. But you're supposed to have a superego that functions. So we have to move past this and we have to integrate a positive, loving, guiding superego. Big goal, ladies and gents. This is a big goal, and this is a big goal. If you do this, and you half do this, you would look to the external world like a very different human. And people would tell you, you seem healed of whatever it was. You see that trouble that you had for years, you will not be anywhere near as agitated. So if you get maybe 80% of this done, like 80% of the time, it's a bit of a fight. You have to remember, you remind yourself, I'm going to say no sometimes. I'm going to assert my boundaries with people in a way that is sane and polite and whatever else, and functional, adaptive, not maladaptive. You don't want to be losing friends and jobs and things over it. And also internal boundaries. I can now set an internal boundary and be like, hey, I don't have to follow every single impulse that I have, because these internal boundaries can be like, eat the whole tub of Ben and Jerry's. I know, because that was me. And this is another reason why people with CPTSD that goes on for years, like me, look like and act like and sound like borderlines, like me, because we lack impulse control. I don't feel particularly, well, I would never have said to myself, I don't feel particularly good today. Because if I said to myself, I don't feel particularly good today, I would have been able to do step 1 of emotional literacy, and I couldn't even do that. The thought, it came to me as a thought, I'm going to get really drunk tonight, would just enter. And then whatever little bits of money that I had left, I would spend on getting smashed out my skull, or maybe taking drugs, or maybe doing something else, or meeting up with a girl who probably I would have been better off not bothering with for all concerned. Impulse control. addictive cycles of behavior, self-destructive behavior, massive emotional dysregulation, bouts of rage. These are the things that make clinicians like just quietly tick little boxes for borderline personality disorder. So if you fix this, you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to function much better in the world. It's so hard to live. It's torturous to live without external and internal boundaries because you're in chaos all the time. You're completely susceptible to anything that comes in. You're skinless, you're boundaryless, you have no walls to protect you. And then internally, you have no order because inside of a structure, the walls provide order. They provide a system. You get 80% of this done and just 50% of this done, you look like a very different human being. We want to get it all done, but it's not in accordance with the Pete Walker guidance. So he said there's 2 steps, and I called it like a yang and a yin. Yang, protect the self. The superego attacks, you push back, you anger against it. And then something that I hadn't spent much time on was, or not quite enough time on, was the yin, was then turning the voice nurturing. So I have courses where I tried to get people to repattern that inner voice. And it worked for some people, and for other people, it just did not work at all. In fact, for some people, it really wound them up. So going direct and being like, okay, let's reprogram this inner voice. Some people, great. Other people, didn't work. And so I was like, okay, it's not worth pushing something like this. Even if you've got like 20% of people are getting a bad reaction, you go, well, it works for 80% of people. You can't work like that. You shouldn't really work like that. So this, what I'm offering you here, what I offer you in the Heal the Superego course, is a much more gentle way of getting to the point where you can have, the Heal the Superego course is to get your superego neutral, not attacking. Most of the time, like 80-90% of the time, it's not attacking you. Now it's time to move a step further and be like, how do we get this positive, loving, guiding superego? Because that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to send down messages from on high, observing you about your morals, your values, your principles. And it's not like preachy, don't eat the cookie because it's delicious and everything that's delicious is bad. It's supposed to help you to thrive so that you're making good decisions that will cause you to thrive. So that you're doing things that are good for you. So you're doing things that allow you to move forward, feeling confident, feeling good about yourself. So these are our goals, and this is how we enter into it. So the moral philosophy, the value system, the principles, the way of life, it allows us to distinguish between a thought and a feeling. Why? Because, and people get stuck on this. They'll go, well, you're saying there's good and there's evil. That's dualistic. And I'm like, if you really are determined to intellectually hop out of doing this, as with anything I show you, it's a YouTube video, it's free, and if you really don't want it to work, it's really not going to work. But we need a duality here. Absolutely, we need a duality, because say, for example, you want to develop a moral system. You want your own moral system that's non-dual, that is non-dualistic. I would say to you, fine. You can develop whatever moral system you want. I'm not a priest, so I'm not offering you a prepackaged moral system. People have said, what's your moral system? And I'm like, I don't even know. I think it's still developing. It's not the content. It's not content is not going to help you here. No, it will. It will. Like good content, a good moral system is going to help you. But it's not the primary focus. Our primary focus is on the context. So it's not dogma. It's not like, well, once I've answered for once and for all what is good and what is evil, it's over. I'm golden. Everything is fine. It's finished. Conversation done. Written in the holy book. Anybody tries to change it, chop off their eyelids. No, that's not useful. We're trying to develop a skill. I want you to be able to feel comfortable philosophizing, rationalizing, and asking this question, what is good? And what happens? Say right now, you say to yourself, ask yourself the question right now, what is good? How do we determine good from evil? I always start GCSE level philosophy. I think that which is life affirming usually tends to be good. That which is painful and life denying, we tend to call evil. That's a little bit of content for you, which is not the focus. It's like lifting weights. I want you to be asking the questions and developing the skill. I don't want you clinging to dogma, because that is when it's when the ego creeps in via the back door and the superego comes in, and it will judge other people. They're wrong. They believe in eating Marmite on a Wednesday. Disgusting. We, in my team, which is all-knowing and always right, only ever eats jam on a Wednesday. And that's why we chop their eyelids off. You want to be able to ask these questions. What is good? What is evil? You want to be able to have that conversation. Who are you having the conversation with? Here's a slightly controversial thing that I'm going to tell you to do. Slightly controversial. I want you to develop the skill of talking to yourself. Because I think that this is a cornerstone of sanity and self-protection. Out loud, if you've got the privacy, I don't see why not. If it helps you to think it through, you could take notes, you could journal the questions that you're asking yourself. But when I say talking to yourself, you want part A and part B to be able to have this conversation. Now, you'd be like, I don't know about this. Okay. Many of you are here because you've been in abusive relationships, either with family members, with narcissists, with psychopaths, exploiters. They come home and they say to you, you know that thing that you told me that you really, really wanted me to do with you? Yeah, I decided I'm not going to do it. And you go, and you freeze, because you have no external boundaries and you have no internal boundaries. And you go, okay, is this good or is this evil? Now, you're not consciously asking, is this good or is this evil? You're semi-consciously trying to assign meaning to what they've said. And then semi-consciously, you're trying to figure out many things, like, what does this communicate about the stability of our relationship? What does this communicate about my status in this person's life? What does this communicate? He's not doing something bad. He's not doing something that he said he would do. So what does it mean? And then you're stuck because you don't have good context muscles to say what is good, what is evil. All philosophical and religious systems start with this. Always, throughout the whole of time, they start with these questions. I know it seems facile, it's dualistic, there's no good, there's no bad. I personally don't believe that. And I think there's systems of thought that tell you there's no good and no evil. Personally, with all humility and with all respect, we're not going to get into my philosophy is better than yours ego contest today. But if you're recovering from abuse, it's beneficial to the abuser for you to believe there's no me, there's no you, there's no boundaries. There's no me, there's no you. There's only just a swaying spectrum of perception and impressions and subjectivity. There's no objective truth. All science is a delusion, a projection of Maya in the wheel of samsara. Guys, girls, please, save yourselves. You need this. You need to know some things are good and some things are bad. If you cling to heavily non-dualistic systems or I just mentioned, I use Sanskrit words, so obviously I'm referencing Buddhism and Hinduism. People in the West misinterpret these systems and they act like they're completely non-dualistic. And it's just not true. It's just, sometimes it's mistranslation and sometimes it's a deliberate misrepresentation of the systems from charlatans. People who, sometimes I think they themselves just didn't understand it. So they keep propagating the same thing. or they've read from somebody who didn't understand it. Sometimes the mistranslations that I've seen of Sanskrit words, you can trace them back 4 books over like this book was published and they mistranslated. 15 years later, this book was published and referenced this one. This book was published and referenced this one, which references that one. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like an echo chamber. If you want a non-dualistic system, ultimately, it's fine. Like, it's fine. But I'm here today trying to help people overcome CPTSD, overcome chaos, overcome confusion, overcome abuse. It only serves the abuser for you to believe there's no me and no you. It only serves the abuser for you to believe there's no good, there's no evil, there's only perception. That means I can do whatever I want to you and justify it. Think about it. Cui bono? Who benefits from you thinking there's no good and no evil and no boundaries in the world? Bad people benefit from that. Bad, evil people benefit from you having chaos. Good is accountable. Good is responsible. Good is not fawning, it's respectful. I'm not fawning to you, I'm respecting your intelligence. I'm not serving you and supplicating to you. Because it's from goodness, I'm like, no, you're going to have to do better. You're going to have to grow up. Because if I come along and oh, poor you, it's sad. That seems good to me, this is my opinion, but that's actually evil because it disempowers you. I want you whole. I want you strong. I want you to be able to walk into a room and there's 2 people talking, 2 teachers, 2 gurus, 2 whatever, and you should be able to go, that sounds nice, but that's not going to lead me anywhere good. That's easy. I can take it. It's exciting, but I know that that's not going to lead me anywhere good because I've spent weeks and months and time thinking about these questions and the questions beyond it. This other guy is not that good looking. He's a bit dull and his philosophy sounds hard, but I suspect that in the long term, that's going to suit me. That's actually going to not suit me. It's going to help me to thrive. We want you to thrive. We want you to grow. So beyond these questions of what is good, what is evil, we need to be asking, what is the nature of reality? And how should a person live their lives? And you'd be like, I just want to get over mental health issues. I don't want a lesson in philosophy. I don't want to answer these hard, open-ended questions. I just want to get over abuse. My friends, please hear me. This is a free video and I'm trying to give you as much value as I can. And I say this with total and absolute sincerity from the bottom of my heart. You will not heal. You will never move on in a way that is meaningful. And you will never protect yourselves from narcissists, psychopaths, borderlines, exploitative types in the future unless you have this. If you have this, you can say no. You can choose. You don't need me. You don't need her. You don't need him. You don't need that governing body to tell you what to think because you can think for yourself. I really need you to hear me. I only want for you to think for yourself and feel for yourself and go, okay. Trauma, it's known. This is not me saying this. It's known that in order to recover from trauma damages our map of reality. That's one of the things that trauma over time, even singular trauma, if it's intense enough, it makes us feel like we've lost our place in our internal cosmology. So we're like, I don't even know how the world works. And then you go, like, people just go into a freeze mode. You must, if you've been traumatized and it's been a hard journey of recovery and you've done everything in all the tutorials up to this point, and remember I told you, it's months you're measuring the progress in. Months, realistically, it's going to be years that you're measuring this progress in. But you should see some progress inside of days. And that should give you the inspiration to be like, oh, okay, this actually is doing something, and to keep going. But if you were traumatized in your childhood over 8 to 12 years, there's no system out there that's going to take that away inside of like 4 weeks. You can't do it. All this, and we've not even got into much yet of what to do with the moral philosophy thing. You see what this moral philosophy actually represents? Some of you have already got it. It represents daddy. It represents mummy. This is internal daddy. Who's telling you what's right to do? Your internal father. Your internal father is saying, don't do that. Put that down. Not that one. Yes, that one. That one is safe. You're doing well. Everything is okay. Everything's going to work out. You're doing well. So it's a role that fathers and mothers play. It's more of the superego is more of a yang energy, in my humble opinion, which is why when it gets nasty, you see the most nasty elements of it's bullying, it's psychopathic, it's judgmental, right? It's not. So it's in that yang end of the spectrum. So similarly, when we want it to be positive and loving and guiding, the guide is more like a masculine, in my humble opinion. It's a masculine part. It's a mother and a father, and obviously mothers and fathers both play this role. But think of it as being mummy, big daddy, internalized, telling you that's good, that's bad, don't do that. Oh, I could have sex with this person, but they're married. Yeah, they're nice looking, but please don't. I could do this to make money, and it would make a lot of money really quickly. Yeah, it would. But is that what we do? Is that what we do? See, like a company or a corporation or a business has values, or a team, a sports team that has values. Is that what we do? Do we rip people off for money? Do we lie to attack? You know, if you're in business and you're sly hamstringing your competitors, yeah, it works. You take them out of business, you slander their name, you put a little bit of poison in the water, suddenly they're not, and yours goes up. Is that what we do on this team? Is that how we play the game? No. Why? Because we've made an ethical, values-based, principles-based choice. We do the right thing because we beliefs, that the harder, straighter, narrower path is the easier path when you pull out your perspective and view over a lifetime, or perhaps multiple lifetimes, depending on your belief system. Over the course of a lifetime, this is the best way. For me personally, this path, for me, just, it could be my unconscious. I don't know if it's necessarily a spiritual thing. Like if I feel good, things work. If I'm flooding with good, it seems to work better than me trying to defend violence with violence or slander with slander. I'll just go, okay, no, I'll just say good and do good and then let that karmic wave build. I just think it's better. If our old mythologies, I think, are true, that the snake, this deceptive, sinuous, whispering, just do it this way. You don't have to do it like that. Fuck all that. Oh, swearing again. Just everybody's bad. The snake says that's a psychopath's belief system. By the way, everybody's bad. It's a dog eat dog world. Do it to them before they do it to you. All women are evil. Do it to them before she does it to you. All men, toxically masculine. Do it to him before he does it to you. And this is the world that we have now. We live in this world, bereft of a moral philosophy. You could even say, I can't remember who suggested it to me. Somebody said this to me not that long ago, within the last year, not a psychologist. I think it was a filmmaker. Said, is there such a thing as a collective superego? And I was like, maybe in culture we have collective superegos. Like Jung's idea of a collective unconscious, we could have a collective superego, a collective inner critic, a collective outer critic. What are we choosing? Are we choosing the harder, straighter, narrower path? Or are we believing, this is a lie, by the way, it's not easier. That's why in the old mythology of multiple religions, and even like, I'm getting more into like Greek religion now, you'll see like religions borrowing from these different brands, these different stories, these different, like nicking from, that's a good bit of story. They nick from each other. But the idea of a tempter who whispers lies is prevalent in many cultures and many religions, because I think that's what this is. It's do it this way, it'll be better. It's not. It's not better. The people who traumatized you, where were they coming from? Listen, even good people hurt others by mistake, or you have a bad day, or you don't realize. But I don't believe, that's my belief system, that people who are trying to operate from good ever do this. Trauma over time. Like if the person's going, ow, that hurts, ow, that hurts, ow, that hurts, hour after hour, day after day, and you keep going, folks, is it hard? Are you confused? Is that good or evil? Okay, we've just done a lesson in moral philosophy. We can all agree, I think, to repeatedly ignore the cries of pain and the pleas for mercy, to repeatedly ignore it is evil. And where are they coming from? They probably didn't see you as a person. They probably see their own children as things. They probably thought they were being smart. They probably thought, well, I mean, narcissism gives us everything we need to answer that. The prince of lies, evil, it's like narcissism and psychopathy. It's, I have the right. I have the right to behave this way. I'm better than you. You don't even really exist. I'm God. I'm sorry to I'm bringing a lot, I don't know, maybe I have a religious day today. Bring a lot of religion into this, which will put people off. You don't need religion. You don't need religion, but my God, and by God, the God that you apparently don't believe in, you do need a moral philosophy. You do need values. You do need principles, and you need to have a way of life. What do we do on our team? Do we stab people in the back? Do we spread lies about people? Do we slander people? Do we libel people? No. Why? Because it's not right. So when you have a moral philosophy, I'm asking you to go for context, not content, predominantly. You want to be strong. You want to be asking the question. That's what philosophy is. It's dialogue. You want to be talking to yourself, which is what thinking is. It's a question and an answer a protocol system. Ask a question. So you'll have just asked yourself, is it really? And then another part of you goes, oh, I suppose it is. Right? You just did that. Question and answer. That's what thinking is. So we're learning to be better thinkers. We're learning to talk to ourselves, and we're learning to make judgments. Not as the outer critic, but from a position of strength and benevolence. Because kindness flows both ways. And it is kind to me for me to point out evil and say, at least to myself, that's wrong. What that person is doing is based on deception, and it's wrong. And I'm not going to associate with them anymore. I'm not doing it. That's wrong. That's evil. And go, I don't do that. I don't do that. They may do that, but I'm not doing it. And then it becomes a hard boundary. So jokingly, you'll have heard people say, and I say it with my friends sometimes, they ask me to do something and I'll be like, no, that's a hard no. That's a hard boundary for me. It's kind of like California therapy speak. That's a hard boundary for me. I'm not going to do that. But it's a real thing. You could say, no, I'm not going to do it. So you want to get good at this and know why you're doing the good thing, because otherwise you'll be pulled into evil. That's what a relationship is. If you were in a narcissistically abusive relationship as an adult, it was, come here, do this. This is going to be good. Yeah, you know it's not right. We all did. Every narcissistically abusive relationship, except when it's parent-child, where there's no choice. When it's adult, we all knew the person was bad. Like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, but chocolate cake is really delicious. And then we go into it. So, but if you have a good moral system, you can see evil. If you have a good moral philosophy, you have internal boundaries. You can see evil for evil. That is wrong. And then you can make an internal boundary. You say, that's evil, but it's cool. I want some of that because I think it's cool. My ego wants some of that, but it's evil. Okay, so if I only have an external boundary with no internal boundary, be like, I can see that that's evil, but it's cool, and I think that it's going to benefit me, so I'm going to shortcut, break my boundary for evil to get in. I'm going to shortcut, I'm going to do it because I don't have the internal boundary. So you want a good internal boundary. Walking away from opportunities, walking away from relationships, walking away from business ventures, and not feeling like a dummy for doing it, like some naive little goody two shoes do-gooder. We don't want to create like a bunch of people who are daft and naive and like little goody two shoes type people. No, that's where the strength comes in. You go, why didn't you do that? Because that's not what I do. It just doesn't exist. I'm not going to do that. Okay, what are you going to do instead? That is an example of a positive, loving, guiding superego that's bringing your morals, your values, your principles down. So what else do we need to do? We need to work on the muscle of asking the question, what is good, what is evil? Ask the question, what is the nature of reality? Ask the question, how should a person live their life? If you have an answer to that, if you literally write down, say if you wrote down every day 1,000 words, it's not that much, maybe take you, I don't know, depending on how fast you write, like half an hour, 40 minutes. And you start to go, what is good? What is evil? How should a person live? What is good? What is evil? How should a person live? Every day for, my favorite thing, every day for 30 days. You will grow boundaries in places you have none. You will have order in places where now you only have chaos. You will have strength and walls and an ability to say no when now you have nothing. Because chaos can't say no. That's not what chaos is. Chaos is pure potential. But it's pure potential for anything. It's pure potential with no boundaries. You might get lucky with pure chaos. With pure potential and pure chaos, you might get lucky. Flip the coin. Something good may come in. But I'll tell you something I've found in my time on this planet, in this dimension. When you do chaos, typically what comes in is not angelic. Typically what comes in is something from the other side of the other team. Something nasty comes in when you embrace chaos. So developing a moral philosophy, asking philosophical questions, joining a philosophy group. There's a thing, I don't know if it still exists, but it used to a few years ago, free meetups from meetup.com called Socrates Cafe. And you could go and discuss philosophy with people. If you have a friend, you could discuss that. Some of you already do this, but you do it in an unfettered, unboundaried, and unconscious way. So there are guys and girls watching this who sit with their friends and they kind of bitch about relationships. But what that is, I think, is based on a positive urge to form a value system. Like, what did she say to you? Oh, she said that. What did you do? Oh, I did this. And I'm like, I would never do that. You should never. And I'm like, okay, if you're going to do that, do it, but be noble in the way that you're doing it. Have value. Have virtue. You know that Greek concept from Greek philosophy, the virtues? It's there in Taoism. The way of the superior man. Superior sounds a bit narcissistic. Okay, the way of the good human, let's call it. The developed, mature, well-rounded, thriving, healed from trauma human. Doesn't mess with this stuff. Sticks with this even when it hurts and it's hard. Sticks with doing that which they think is right and is in accordance with their values. When you can live in accordance with your values and you're talking to yourself, you've grown a capacity for an internal dialogue that some people don't even have. And it's a positive one, not because you have a dogma that you hold on to, but because now you can ask the question. So when the person comes home and you say to them, oh, we have that appointment that I told you about that's important to me, and they go, well, it's not that important to me and I'm not going. You now have a context and a skill set and a strength through which to filter that and say, okay, is this something that hurts me and I'm going to sweep it under the carpet for peace? Or is this something I'm going to plant my flag on? I'm going to plant my flag on this particular hill and have a battle over this. Otherwise, you'll choose non-resistance every time. You'll choose the way of peace every time. It's not even the way of peace. That's the way of like passivity. That's the way of supplication. Because in a choice between conflict and peace, only people who are extremely emotionally dysregulated and are like psychopaths who are addicted to drama and addicted to conflict, high conflict personalities, you're going to choose the low conflict way out, which you'll find over time benefits the bad person and costs the good. The problem with our world, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make bold, big, great, grandiose statements about the world, is not a lack of good people. It's not a lack of goodness. It's that our goodness is weak. It's weak and it doesn't stand up for a second against evil. It gets smashed to pieces because we don't have this. Our strength, our peace, our way of life, being righteous, honorable, truthful, and believing in something must be defended and must be asserted. If you want to heal, you want to move on, you want to live a good life, and you don't want to be the victim of exploitation in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention on that one. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Cheers.